I'm joined by Kate Lord-Brennan here, MLC, and one of those who was sort of deciding that not going on any more government positions, and that's what we talked about last time, a few weeks ago.
Last week.
And
only last week.
And of course, things keep happening up there. Now, we'll come to that in a minute, but we want to talk about scrutinising what goes on in Tynwald. And first of all, though, I have to ask you about what did you think when Mr. Cregeen, when you asked a question, and you can go into more detail, he just said, just read the report. Well, I mean, go on.
Well, the only thing I've got to say to that is that I had read the report and I was actually making some important points about childcare provision. It was in Tynwald sitting that those comments were made. And I don't think I'd make such points without having looked at the detail of the report, which I had. So yes,
is that what's bullying?
I'd read it.
Was it sort of shutting you down?
I think in that way it was just a bit of a surly parliamentary response. To be honest, I wasn't. I didn't come away kind of concerned about it.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things, really, just an off the cuff comment. It didn't. It wasn't the best response, but there we go.
Well, childcare is something you're very passionate about, and the scrutiny that's going on at the moment. Over to you. Where are we up to, and what are you up doing?
So the thing that got lost in some of the media last week, may have been about comments that were said this, that, the other, but actually there was a really important debate around childcare provision, and the background to that had come from one of the policy scrutiny committees, where in 2017 David Ashford had essentially put a motion to Tynwald to say, actually, this is a significant issue, it needs to be looked at. And there was a lot of work that was done by the Social Policy Review Committee that had looked into, is there enough provision? They'd taken evidence from childcare providers, they talked to parents, and even, up till last week, in kind of following up where we got with this, because last week Tynwald had received a government committee response to what they were going to do, basically based on the recommendations of the scrutiny committee. People were saying, well, yeah, I gave evidence to that committee, and some of these issues were still arising. So what happened in Tynwald last week is that there was a government committee that looked at it, and actually in response to some of the very important serious recommendations that had come from the original scrutiny committee, they were kind of missing the mark a little bit. And it was through looking back at what those recommendations were that were Tynwald approved, and looking at the detail of the government response, that there was a gap. I made that point in Tynwald, and actually positively, and this is one of the things that has kind of not maybe come out so much, there were some amended recommendations that will hopefully tick the boxes a lot better for working families, but things did kind of threaten to go awry, and it was that detailed look that was needed.
What's happening then? Where is it, moving departments and that sort of thing, or is it staying where it is? Because as you say, it has got slightly lost in other stories, I think.
It has, and that's why I wanted to make the point about it. So what the government working committee, who were charged with looking at the childcare provision, and it has to be said that originally this started off as being a narrow focus nursery provision, and it was Minister Graham who actually decided to widen that to look at summer holiday care, to start the summer holidays. That's really important to parents and working families now, and also wraparound care, and that had come from a suggestion in a debate last year. But then what the government report had come and said, in terms of next steps, really, was Tynwald member parents, we're looking for actually what's going to make a difference on the ground. Some of those recommendations were very good in terms of flexible working. You're going to look into that. All those were recommendations that in fact the Tynwald committee had already identified, that around employment law, so it was kind of recycling some of the same things. And then others were kind of saying, oh, well, we need to have an early years strategy. Now that might be very, very important, and I get that, but what the original issue in terms of a topic, and it's something that we need to deal with, was actually around childcare nursery provision. So my interests and some of the other members were also very interested in this, as well, what's actually going to make a difference. So some amendments were accepted. At first it looked like that might not happen, but I have to say that the outcome has been that Tynwald has amended the original recommendations so that government will then have to go and have a look at not just suggestions that will make a difference, but options for wraparound care, that's before and after school, and options for summer holiday care. So come up with something specific, and also to look at provision in particular in local communities. And those were the gaps. The kind of original point of we don't have enough provision was at risk of kind of getting subsumed into something else, I felt.
Are we better or worse than the United Kingdom's legislation on this, or the way they tackle it?
Well, it's not all about legislation, but there has already been a lot of data that's gone through. The committee had come back with more data that was helpful, but actually it's not going to, you need action. The original scrutiny committee had taken a lot of evidence and heard from a lot of things, so that the issues were known. The issues were known that actually childcare was quite a difficult place to work in. In some ways there was a lot of administrative burden that was put on, that parents simply could not find the spaces to put their children. So I think in a way we needed to see something more from that government response. And we needed to see those actions that were going to, those recommendations that were going to specifically lead to solving the problem in line with the original vision of the scrutiny committee.
What's the timescale now, and where's it up to in that sort of?
Well, I don't know. That's for government to go and work on. But
they give you any dates? No,
because I have to say that some of this stuff some of these amendments.
Is this all it, by the way? Is that a report? It's massive,
no, this is the thing. So people don't know a great deal about the policy scrutiny committee. So. Shall I hold this up?
Yeah, hold it up.
Right, so this is just a very small report.
Flip through.
That's
okay, and you've highlighted some of your.
That's the original review committee report. That's some of the reports that come from the scrutiny committees, and it's very important because they take evidence so people can be heard, and then effectively those recommendations or findings are put to Tynwald government. But some of them can be like that, and there could be multiple volumes. But for me, really helpful, because I wasn't around when this was kind of in development, a very helpful point of reference to be able to go back to effectively the government working party and say, well hang on a second, actually this was what was required in the original. So do you see, it's about following a thread through scrutiny and identifying what's going to get us to what we need.
Have you got confidence in Minister Cregeen?
It's not really for me to say.
Well, you were sitting the other week, and it's all kicking off, in the sense of, and you're at the end of it. I mean, I mean, that's an opinion.
It was unfortunate, really, that it went. I think in the following debate, the next day, to do with education, and it was Daphne Kaye's motion. It was, and I said it in Tynwald. It's very uncomfortable to hear, and actually, members really should be able to challenge, bring forward ideas without it kind of going. I think the way I put it was that it went downhill quite fast.
Is bullying going on?
I don't know. I've not worked close enough to that situation really. Obviously it's not. It's not been a great week.
I always ask everyone that.
I can't have the job, importantly.
If you're studying, you're right.
No, Legislative Council member.
You're right.
Yeah, so that's it's not my place to say. It's not written in stone that.
You could actually, but you don't want
to. No. I mean, I think that's the other part of, if I had been, and this is important, if I'd have been so involved with all the government work even last week, I can tell you that I probably would not have had the time and focus to be able to comb through these reports, look specifically at the detail of the recommendations. No, you just need to cross-reference it. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And also, lots of parents and childcare providers had also been contacting me. So then I had to think, is this worthwhile trying to put something together on? But in the end, definitely worth it. And also, the Council of Ministers and the rest of Tynwald supported the amended recommendations that had come from Claire Betton. And that in itself, I have to say, even though we need action and stuff needs to change, this is all positive stuff for working families, and I was so glad.
Oh, so you're quite positive?
I'm positive. I am, yes, because the right elements kicked in at the right time, and effectively government will have to go back and make sure they're not going to lose the thread, because any department...
You're going to keep on this, obviously, clearly.
I think it's really important to, but any department should know that particularly if they're responding to something that's come from one of the scrutiny committees, that there's a chance that it's going to be looked at again, and somebody else might say, well, hang on, is that what was really the intention here? So very important for families, yes.